Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Puzzled Minds podcast. Today we have a very, very special guest. Her name is Gigi Moon, and she is a Korean, Greek, Italian. So I had to say that like that.
Man.
Model slash actress. And if you're familiar with any K-pop, she was actually in a music video called Loser. I actually did my research on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I actually stole it from the Twitch page.
Oh, yeah.
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 So when I actually first found that out, I was like, oh shit, I need to watch this. So I watched it and I was like, oh shit, I know someone famous now. So that's
I'm not barely.
all good.
Good count.
Yeah.
So other than that, cool. I've had the pleasure of knowing Gigi since high school, and she's a really great friend of mine. So other than that, please give her a warm welcome.
Thank you. Hi guys. Thank you for that. I guess this is, other than one other podcast I did recently, this is my second podcast, and you get to find out that I'm awkward as fuck. But this is really awesome, and I'm glad that you started doing this. It's perfect for, especially the situation that we're in. It's just so nice to be able to sit down and talk with friends and have meaningful conversation, and not just hey, how are you doing during COVID? And then 5 days later, oh, I forgot I asked you how you were doing.
Yeah.
It's so crap.
It's interesting. This could be the new normal, guys. You never know. I mean, they keep saying it'll last a couple months, but it's we're going to be 10 years later, we're still going to be in our rooms, zooming people.
I know. I hope not.
There was a picture I saw. It was a black and white picture of some people in some diners, and it was said, remember times when it was like this, and it said 2019.
Last year where you could actually touch people without risking dying.
Oh, man.
Yeah. No, I think that might be another topic for another day. But yeah, no, this whole thing is very, very weird. And I think that we'll we'll talk about it on another episode, but this whole coronavirus thing is going to impact us socially in a lot of other ways that we don't really realize until we will realize it a little bit later. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm already used to not handshaking people already. I just look at people. Let's say hello from 10 feet away. I'm just used to that now. When we go back to actually having to hug and, I don't know, high five people, I'm going to be what the fuck are people doing? This is
do you think that we'll be given, the wink and the gun will come back? Hey, you think that
does? I'll leave this planet immediately.
I just do the white person smile. You're just
oh yeah, kind of I just called the cop smile. Yeah. Sorry, dear bud.
Yeah.
You might have to do the little awkward smile and the little not a high five, but kind of a hey, my hand's right here, but I'm kind of giving you an awkward
Quote unquote smile.
Yeah.
Totally.
Anyway, so today's episode is brought to you by the letter P, and it is for paranormal. Yeah, I don't like the little pop sound. Paranormal. Okay.
Yay.
Yeah. So, Tadeo said he had a story that he wanted to talk about that had to do with paranormal stuff. So.
Okay. Yeah, so for me, I'll let you guys know in advance. I'm pretty much not scared of anything other than stuff that deals with spirits in that weird realm. Because I think that stuff has to exist. When you see when you see monster movies and all that stuff, I guess unreal that it doesn't scare me. But when I saw something like The Grudge, I saw the first Grudge in 2008. Up until the first It movie, I had not seen a horror movie in almost 10 years. It was that bad. That's how terrified I am of this. So this story I want to tell you guys about. It's not really that scary, but it is kind of interesting. So it's called Valley Hill Lights, and this took place in Springfield, Kentucky. So I'm going to try to speed through this read. If I'm reading too fast, let me know. So on April 6, 1995, Ann Mudd, a Sunday school teacher, visited Valley Hill in Springfield, Kentucky. Along with 8 of her students, one of the girls, Mandy Mattingly, almost sounds like a fake-ass name, soon caused commotion when she pointed at the sky and told the rest of the party that she was seeing strange colors around the sun. She also said that she could see the sun pulsating. The teacher then allegedly saw gold colors appearing on her students, and then she took photos of them. When the photos were developed, it was claimed that angels surrounded one of the girls in the picture. Meanwhile, another depicted Jesus and Mary wearing veils. One of the students also claimed that another picture reflected the name of her deceased cousin on the tombstone. It is said that the mothers of the students didn't believe the story at all, but after having several visions, they changed their tune. Also, this incident has mostly been written off as hysteria, but who knows? So, I was before we kind of started this podcast, I was posing an interesting question. You know, everyone always talks about, you know, angels in the religious context. What if there's a possibility that angels are actually aliens? There's always, because we always look, think about, like, for example, when you, like, have you ever thought about, like, when you, like, walk past like, an ant or an insect, right? They probably look at human beings as, like, we're just divine, crazy beings, right? So what if, you know, like, angels are something that we just don't have, we just can't comprehend. So when we see it, we have to actually give it a name. Because I've always believed that, like, you know, I do believe, like, the spiritual realm, but I do think it's something that we just don't understand.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. So when you posed that question to me, like, I was like, dude, we didn't even start this podcast and my brain's already broken, because, you know, we normally associate angels as like a religious aspect, but when you take out the religious aspect and you pose it that way, for me, that's a different way of thinking. And then now I have to, like, sit down and actually think about that, you know, because what if that, you know, are we boxing our definition of angels only in a spiritual way, you know?
I 100% agree. Like, so I used to be all into this, like, horror, just like you know, I was, I'm not scared of anything except, you know, spirits and shit, like the possibility of it. Like, that's the main, like, I can watch any kind of gory movie, I can watch monster movies, but if it's a movie where, like, I'm gonna look in the mirror and there's gonna be, like, spirits in there, I can't do it anymore. Especially after you have kids. Like, it's hard, because not only are you worried about yourself now, you're worried about your children, and that, you know, makes it even crazier. So, like you, I haven't seen a horror movie in probably, like, 9 years now either.
Yeah.
But when it comes,
they get more and more realistic too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you definitely, you know, live in the now when you become a parent and you're focused on real life stuff. But, you know, I used to read so much stuff about aliens and all these, you know, like the, you know, the children with the black eyes thing, everything paranormal, I've read it. And when we get into talking about angels and aliens, like you, John, when you were saying that when you take the religious aspect away and you look at just the stories, like, not the stories, but, like, kind of like the facts, like, you look at all these different stories from all these different religions, and even, like, ancient civilizations, like the Mayans, they all have stories depicting people coming from the sky in, like, lights. And there was a whole thing I watched a long time ago about this, but basically, you know, I 100% believe it, along with all the other, you know, stories about aliens and UFOs. They all come from the sky, obviously. They all have, every single person has witnessed lights, like you know, believable lights that they cannot, like, it's just, and if you think about the people back in those times where they had nowhere near the same technology and knowledge that we have now. So they're going to be like, people from the sky. It's like, not of this world. They're not going to say aliens. They're going to be like, you know, these mystical beings that eventually translate into, like, angels and you know, gods and demons and all this stuff. So I heavily believe in that. Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but
and to your point also as well too, like, you brought up a good point that they always come from the sky. That's the interesting part. Like, you have multiple cultures that have probably never really, like, interacted with each other, but whenever they talk about, you know, like, you know, whether it's, you know, like the Egyptians talk about Horus and the gods, or the Mayans and all the deities they believe in, why is it that it's always depicted as coming from the sky? And if you think about it now, like, even us, when I think about aliens, I always think about, you know, like, giant space flying saucer coming from the sky. We just look at it. We just add a different name to it. We just call them aliens. We look like little green men, but, like, to us, we're doing the same thing that they did. We're looking at something that we don't know where it comes from. We can't comprehend it. And it's something that, like more or less.
We've created a story. Like
exactly.
we've created our story. It's not a religious story, but aliens that take you away and, come from the sky and probe you. Like that's our generation of, what's happening.
So
we've chosen to understand it.
Why is the narrative, now I think about it, why do we always say that aliens probe us? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, who was out there talking about, when did aliens
I have no idea.
That's got to be like a fantasy of someone, and they copped out and they said, hey, look, aliens probe us. That's got to be it.
I have no idea. I mean, that's another thing too. Like, if you like really think about it and you really like watch these videos of people that genuinely like believe that they've had that experience, regardless of the like psychological aspect or whether they're telling the truth or their brains are making it up, like whatever, I feel it hard to believe that someone would pull that out of their ass. Like pun intended, not intended. Yeah. Sorry. I mean, like, you can't. It's kind of like something where you just can't make up something like that on the fly. So I've just with any story, there's always an underlying layer of truth, whether it's minuscule or not. There's something there that started that. Imagination or story or whatever. So, and I think that's what freaks me out more than anything, because it's not like, oh, it's just total lies. Like someone just sat in their room and made up this crazy story and we all, fed into it. It's like something happened to make this person label themselves as a psychotic, crazy person, Yeah.
I wonder why. I have a question also as well too for you guys. Why do you think nowadays why don't we call them gods anymore? Because back in the day, older civilizations, like let's say for example, like they were aliens. Why nowadays do we kind of just comprehend them as it's a different species or coming from a different planet, and we're not like, oh, those are just actual gods? Because back in the day, the Mayans or, the Egyptians or, the Romans or whoever are always like, oh, these guys have to be gods. They have to be something that transcends us.
Well, I feel like it might have something to do with, just our technology and our knowledge now. Like we have NASA, we've been to the moon, we know about space, we know about the solar system and the planets. And back then, like they knew about the stars, but they didn't, like they weren't able to physically see what was in the sky, and I think as people grew and started learning more about this stuff, they kind of try to put science to it instead of, like, there's so many people that try, instead of just listening to the stories, they try to put a science to it to explain it. So nowadays people are like, oh, they're coming from the sky. What's out in the sky? The solar system, planets, the universe. It's just like we live on this planet, they must live on another planet, and they must be made up of completely different, DNA.
I'm like, because if you think about it, like there were even, I don't know if you guys saw that episode of Joe Rogan where he interviewed Bob Lazar, the guy that supposedly worked for Area 51. But the point being is, like, he talked about things like, I forgot what it was called. It was like Element X or something. Like there was an element,
like 151. I think it was Element
151 or something. But pretty much what he was saying was this. I guess this vessel that he supposedly worked on was powered by a source that was not found on this planet at all. So it was something that is beyond our comprehension. Like, well beyond this, like, cause we think about, like, for example, when we talk about, aliens, we're thinking within our realm of knowledge. Like you were talking about how we have NASA and all these things like that. So if we were to discover, like, for example, let's say, for example, God existed, but God was simply an alien, just simply a being that transcends us, I still think that more or less we're doing the same thing as people did back in the day. We're just a little bit smarter at it,
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, we just understand that, like, all right, so they're beings that are, beyond our comprehension. But it seems like nowadays human beings, due to our egos, we don't just automatically say, okay, these guys are just, I guess the word God implies that it's something that's beyond our comprehension perpetually forever. And back in the day, people seem to be cool with it. Nowadays, we're more like, oh no, we have to figure this out. We have to dissect it. We have to, go out there and see what's up. Yes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think, well, so as I was telling John earlier, last night I walked into my boyfriend's room and he was watching this infographic on YouTube, and I I'll send you guys the link later. It was really cool the way they do their stuff. But they were talking about UFO encounters with the Iranian Air Force, and how, I walked in there, I got a glimpse of, the full thing, but basically, they've had multiple encounters, years apart. Like, it's always the same situation. They're watching, their radars, and then something will show up, and then they all show up into their airspace. They get their planes, they go and investigate, and it's this, glowing ball of light. And it's just, moving in strange ways that they don't understand. And like their stuff malfunctions, their communications go down, nothing works, and then it shoots up at the speed of light. Like, I mean, no, faster than the speed of light. So that was what got me to thinking about this, with what you were saying, how their technology is not something we can't even comprehend. So the fastest, so Iran had, I can't remember the name of it now, but Iran bought these really, like, the fastest air jets in the world, that they bought it from the US like a long time ago. And that moves, I believe it was something like, it moves around between 7 to 9 Mach, which is like
fast as fuck.
Very, very, very fast. Like the fastest thing in the world, right?
Yeah.
And they were calculating that the UFOs that they were seeing were moving from basically from 0, they were hovering, to Mach 10 instantly. And they were saying we don't even have the technology or knowledge to, first of all, go that fast. Yeah, go ahead.
Without acceleration,
without acceleration. And that was the thing. Right. And so that was the thing that gave me goosebumps. And that they were talking about how even if it were possible for us to develop some way to travel that fast, it would just be it would just be completely impossible to go that fast from nothing, from 0, right? From hovering. So that just was like kind of eye-opening to what you were saying, how their stuff is just completely like, we cannot comprehend it. We just don't, and we probably never will, because they're I don't know, it's
so
just
far beyond us, I guess. And that leads me to some of like the things where people talk about, like monsters or things of that nature. I mean, this is very far-fetched, so you guys are gonna have to, like, bear with me. But I remember, like, when you hear stories about the Loch Ness Monster, or what is it, like the Wendigo, or the Abominable Snowman, I was like, what if these are crazy just species that are not from this planet or left on this planet? Because you always hear about, like, you think about the ocean, like, was it something like 80% of the ocean is undiscovered?
Yeah, so that's scary.
Yeah, like, think about what's down there. Some wild stuff is probably down there. Mm-hmm. And it's been around for, I don't know, millions of years, I'm assuming. There's probably stuff left over here. Like, if you guys do believe in aliens, I don't assume everyone does, but let's say everyone on this podcast does. I mean, would you think it's too far-fetched to believe that there are certain probably pieces of technology that could have been left on this planet that, we just haven't discovered? Like, they're like they've been here a couple thousand years ago. They're like, let's come back and see how these guys have developed. Now they're on their phones and on TikTok and all this crap now,
Absolutely not. So this is funny that you say that. Sorry to cut you off. Earlier I was on Instagram and I was just scrolling through, everyone's stories, and one popped up. One of my friends randomly posted this out of nowhere. He was like, our Earth is 75% water, 80%, not 80, like 75% covered in water, right? So in his words, aliens refer to our planet as Oceania, or not Earth. And so when they're here, they're not fucking with us. They're swimming with dolphins and they're in the ocean because that's what this planet is to them. And I just thought it was totally random. Like, I never knew him to talk about aliens or anything, but I saw that and I was like, put that together, like 80% of the ocean is undiscovered. It's huge. It's so deep, like further than we can even comprehend on our own planet. And it's like, I feel like it's totally my brain is not working. It's not unbelievable, for lack of a better word, that it could be in our oceans, or like, not that they're there all the time, but like if you ever were to encounter something, it would be down there. Like there's depths that we can't even go to. Our technology can't withstand the pressure, Who knows what's down there?
Do you think that because we're such analytical beings, that because we're trying to understand these things, that's what's limiting us in terms of trying to understand these things? Because we try to make purpose of every single thing, like try to understand and analyze every single aspect of these, like paranormal or aliens or whatever we want to talk about. That because we try to be in an analytical mode, that we're not accepting it for just what it is. Like we have to have an explanation for every single thing. That because we're doing that, it might even be wiser to just accept them for what it is. Does that make sense?
That's a very good point. If I'm understanding, you're saying like, would we have a better chance at understanding it if we accept the fact that there's certain things that we don't understand?
Yeah.
Because then we're not looking at it from like a specific
analytical point.
Yeah, like if you take for example, a device in modern day back to medieval times, they'd probably be like, yo, this is witchcraft, what the fuck is going on? But they have a more open mind back in the day, I believe, because they kind of just, I don't know, like I guess the human mind didn't become so opinionated back then. Like you saw things, you're kind of like, okay, you accept it that you don't understand it, even though they tend to kind of like respond to violence back in the day, but they were more open-minded. Like they believed in, the gods and all these things, and they wildly accepted it. Now you see, if society has progressed, society is more like, no, we have to have a specific answer that makes sense for things. And if we encounter something that doesn't make sense, it's almost like we don't accept it. Like for aliens to exist, we're kind of like, nah, there's no way things exist in this, universe that are not us. Like, how arrogant of a standpoint is that? One. And then on top of that, too, it's like, to John's point, if we kind of just accept it, like, okay, we have no idea what this thing Gigi, you were talking about that can go from, 1 mile an hour to Mach 10 in 2 seconds. Maybe by just having a more open mind and accepting that we don't understand it, we can kind of like start thinking outside the realm of our understanding, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
No, yeah.
I feel like part of that may have to do, though, with just progressing and advancing as a species, trying to understand things, and that's maybe why people get so caught up in trying to find the answers and explanations to these kinds of things, because I feel like it's once we understand it, we can use that knowledge to grow even more, or put pieces together and find out more and more and more and more. And in my eyes, while it is totally ignorant to, be like, oh, it doesn't exist because we can't explain it, I also don't think that it would really be conducive to just sit back and be like, yeah, well, don't know what the fuck's going on. It's, it is what it is. Let's move on. I feel like it's important as humans to wonder and to want to figure it out,
Yeah.
And if we didn't, then we probably wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't have discovered electricity or
or spam.
Right.
Spam, John of the spam.
So just update, the Bob Lazar element was 115, not 151 for
okay, 115.
People that want to know, yeah.
No, 151 is Bacardi. My bad, guys. That's the 100 proof Bacardi. Sorry about that.
Oh man.
So we are limited by the technology of our time. So we are going to have to. We'll be right back, and we will continue with this discussion of the stupidity of the human race.
Got it.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Through that intermission, we had some technical difficulties, more so some Zoom difficulties, but I think we are upgraded now to the point where we won't have this issue anymore. So, but we were talking about the, being more open-minded to the fact that there is some stuff that we don't really understand, and I think that that's a good point that we need to address, because like we had said before, I think that having that open-mindedness, but also maybe realizing that if there's something that we can't explain, then we have to kind of accept it for what it is, but still have that curiosity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Like, still, it's not like, I think what we were trying to say earlier on is like, back in the day, people were more accepting of what they didn't understand, but like we're also like, very curious as to, how to understand it. I think these days, since we have such a, higher level of intellect, that's kind of getting in the way, like especially, when it comes to aliens and things like that. So things that are like, I guess, humanoids almost, we always tend to be like, we should be able to figure it out, versus if you saw something completely outrageous, like, I don't know, if something like a transformer just landed in the middle of New York, I think most people would be like, all right, I don't know what the fuck that is. I'm just okay with that. But if something that human-like showed up, but was so far more advanced than us, I think people just have a hard time accepting that.
Do you guys think that some animals can see or sense paranormal stuff?
I would 100% believe. I think dogs can.
Oh yeah.
I think dogs. Do you think dogs are the ones that have seen the most paranormal stuff, or do you think like cows or owls?
Well, I feel like obviously cats go way back, right? Like to Egypt, they believed that they had that power. And while I feel like it's just something about them, like I feel like they probably, honestly, I feel like they're probably all somewhat similar in what they can sense. I don't think maybe dogs or cats are any more than the other, but I feel like cats probably just don't react, like dogs do.
Yeah, cats don't care. Like, yeah, by the way, bro, there's a demon over there. Just thought no.
And fuck this cup in particular, by the way. Yeah. No, I totally agree. I used to, so this is going back to when I lived in Germany, and I lived in this house at the top of a hill in a little village, and it was a really big house, and it was really old, obviously. And I had 3 dogs, and there were 3 little dogs, and they would just always run around the house. They had their own little room though, so when we needed to lock them away, that sounds horrible, not lock them away, but they had their space, and whenever we'd leave the house or something, they'd go in their room. They've got everything they needed. And so first of all, let me say, whenever I was home alone and they would kind of go crazy, I'd freak out and think, oh, like someone's in the house, or, someone's at the door. And then I go check and there's no one in the house. There's no one in the door. And then there would be times where I'm just sitting down, like sitting in my room, or just doing something quietly, you know, and my dog would be next to me, and then all of a sudden he'd like stand at attention and just look in like one corner of my house, and just kind of like I could tell like he's looking at something, right? I'm like, oh, maybe he hears something, or there's like something, whatever, but he's just like dead staring at this area, and you can see like his hair is raising up, and he's just like in protect mode. And it would freak me out so much. I would be like, hey, stop that, you know, like go do something. And he would just be like totally unfazed. Like I'd be moving him and he'd just stare. And he did that often. And you know, at this time too, I was all into, you know, paranormal stuff, and I was young, and I was just like, you know, I'm not going to pay attention to it. They're just stories. It's not real life. And so I would just kind of like try to trick myself into being like, oh, it's nothing. Like keep moving along. But then there would be times throughout. So I lived in this house for probably, oh man, I don't even know. Probably I would say like 6 years maybe I lived in this house. Maybe 7, and throughout, you know, living there, always in my room. It would always be in my room that, you know, the door would be open, and I'm just, you know, there sitting on my bed, and I could see, you know, the door in the hallway from where I was sitting in my bed. And I'd be like on my phone or on the computer, or like just reading a book or something, and then I would see out of my peripherals, you know, something scurry across the doorway, like across the floor.
I'm already getting chills hearing this.
And I'm just like, and it was so vivid. Like it was no question about it. I heard something and I saw the shadow, and instantly I'm like, oh, it's my dogs, right? Because my dogs are small. They're always running around, always like running back and forth. And at that point, the dogs were supposed to be in the room because I was home alone and my parents had gone, and they were like, oh, we don't want the dogs to be anywhere. Just, you know, put them in their room till we get back. And I'm like, oh shit, like the room's like the door's open, or they're running around the house. They're gonna, you know, mess something up. And so I was like screaming their names. I'm like, Romeo, Jack, get back here, you know, looking around the whole, you know, floor. They're not there. I go downstairs and check. They're nowhere in the house. And then I go into their room, and they're all in their room, and the door was locked. And so I'm just like, okay,
What the hell?
like I'm just, you know, I'm just seeing stuff. And then it would happen all the time. Like, I'm not saying, like, it wasn't like multiple times a week, but throughout my time living in that house, I always had the feeling that, you know, there was someone there.
Like someone watching you almost?
Not necessarily watching me, because I had never felt like terrified like that, but definitely like there was someone, or like there was just something around. Yeah, like a presence. And it was never strong enough to make me like scared or uncomfortable, or like, you know, I don't want to be home alone. Like it wasn't like this is like ghost shit, but it was always like kind of like what's going on. Like it wasn't uncomfortable, but it was like just an overall feeling of just not feeling alone. Not necessarily good or bad, but it was really weird. And throughout just living in my, you know, I keep saying this, throughout the time there in that bedroom, you know, in my house, doors were never allowed to be closed. You know, my mom would take my door off the hinges if I ever, you know, got in trouble or anything. Like, just, it wasn't a thing. It's just rude to have your doors closed in the house unless you're in the bathroom. So my door was always open, and I would always see things like shadows, things running across the floor, or someone walking past, and I would think, oh, it's my mom or dad. Nope, they're downstairs. It's not. Like, Of course, at the time, I didn't really think about it because I didn't want to. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to be scared. That was where I had to live and sleep,
Mm-hmm.
But looking back on it, it was almost, it's almost like a joke. It's like, am I remembering this right? Or am I, just, blowing it up in my head, basically. And during that time, I started looking up shadow people. So shadow people are the people that, like, the spirits that are in your peripherals, that you can never, like, if you look where you think you see them, you're not going to see them, but you can see them from your peripheral vision. And there was something that
or
what,
is it,
what,
do shadow people differ from ghosts?
yeah, there's, I really wish I looked it up before now, but if I can remember correctly, there's something about, how you have, like, your senses, and then people always talk about, like, the sixth sense and stuff. And I think there's, like, an air of possibility to that. Obviously, there's so many people in the world that, psychics and things that people can't explain, right? There was something that the shadow people, your peripherals and the shadow people, like, there's a connection there. Like, it's easier for you to see them with your other sense, because they're not ghosts, and they're not, like, spirits or demons. They're kind of like, if I remember correctly, they're kind of like an interdimensional being, which is what you would say. And yeah, I mean, I didn't really go down that rabbit hole because, like I said, I didn't want to be scared in my own home. But I totally believe, like, that there is something, I believe that there is something else. I don't completely write off ghosts and spirits and all that kind of stuff.
Going on
yeah,
what you said, I noticed you said, like, being, like, interdimensional beings. So if we if we entertain the idea of, like, different planes of existence, that's kind of like where my belief in spirits comes in, where I believe spirits are beings that live in a different, like, I hate to use the word dimension, like I'm, quoting Digimon or some crap, but, like, a different plane of existence. And sometimes we see them, but I don't think it's on purpose. Like, I don't think the typical, like, I don't think human beings are meant to see something that's in a different plane. But whenever you see, like, the shadow people, it could be something like, I don't know, like a quote unquote glitch in the Matrix. Like, you're not supposed to see them.
Oh yeah. Like, I 100%. And then, like you said, where there's places that are haunted or people constantly see ghosts, I feel like, and like you, I hate to sound like a freaking Doctor Who freaking Morty shit, but those could be like the not wormhole, but the glitch, and
like
the glitch
in time. Yeah, the epicenter of, like, it's almost like if two places, if, like, our dimension and their dimension intersects, like, that haunted house would be the place.
Exactly. Or, like, my room. Like I said, I never saw them anywhere else in my house or anywhere else that I've ever lived except for that place where I sat on my bed and my doorway was right in front of me, and nowhere else in the entire house had I ever seen them except for my doorway. And I haven't ever seen one since moving away. And so I heavily believe that, that too.
So when you guys had mentioned ghosts on being on, like, a different plane, do you think that when they do come to our plane, is that they kind of, quote, leaked out in a sense?
Yeah, that's the thing I always try to figure out, because I guess the movies make it seem like, like, how they move, like, for example, like, was it The Grudge, or I keep forgetting where it's The Grudge or one of these other movies.
The Ring?
No, The Ring is the one with
Aren't they the same thing?
I don't know. I don't watch any of that stuff.
Same trauma, different movie,
Yeah.
But, like, typically sometimes with ghosts, like, when they stay in, like, our plane of existence because something happened to them that they haven't, like, gotten over, right? and they need for them to ascend to that plane. It's like they have to be like justice has to be served or something of that sort. But I wonder if, cause I've always typically known, ghosts to be depicted in a malicious way. Like you've never seen like a Casper like ghost. We've always thought about ghosts as like, they're here to, jack your world up.
Yeah.
But going to like, like your shadow people thing, I mean, who's to say that like they're just beings that we're just seeing? Because it doesn't always have to be evil. At least I don't want it to be, because that's terrifying. If every single apparition is, a malicious one, I'm like, damn, this is terrifying. But I've always wondered, like, are they looking at us like, are they looking at us like, are they as, I guess, not scared or as interested in us as we are of them?
But then it's like, do they even see us, or are they like us, like just walking home or going about their normal lives, and then there's just like a like you said, a glitch in the matrix, and they don't realize it because they're doing something, and we're just like, what was that?
So we shadow people to them, like,
yeah, I was about to say that.
Are they looking at,
exactly. And the same thing that you were saying, how ghosts are always depicted as scary or demonic. It's kind of like I said, like I felt a presence, not all the time, just in passing, and it wasn't scary, it wasn't unsettling, it was never like there's a ghost in my house. It was just like there's something, and it wasn't even like a thought that I would have, like, oh, I don't feel alone right now, or it feels like there's someone here or someone watching me. It was just like something that would kind of like phase in and out, like if your arm falls asleep, and it's just kind of like a gradual like shift, and it was never like a instantaneous oh shit feeling. It was just kind of like kind of like breathing. It sounds so weird, it doesn't really make sense, but that was just my experience with it. So
I mean, it goes back to that thing we're talking about before, like things that are beyond our comprehension. And I got a question for you guys. This is a kind of a weird one, but do you think, let's say, for example, aliens exist? Do you think aliens see spirits as well too? Because whenever we see ghosts, I mean, notice we're always human. Like we always see human ghosts. So for aliens, for example, let's say, like, I don't know, Martians, whatever, would they see ghosts of like, people that look like them? Or, what does this whole spirit realm extend to other species as well too?
I've never ever thought of that.
I never thought about that either.
That's my mind is definitely reeling right now. Yeah, I feel like I don't know, right? Because it's not like whenever people talk about ghosts or spirits or seeing things, you never hear of like, oh, it was a different entity, like it wasn't human at all. Well, actually, I lied, you do. Those are called demons. but yeah, actually, that now that my brain is connecting the dots, that very well could be a possibility, I guess. I mean,
because technically it should be a plane of existence. So let's say, for example, like, if you believe in, like, you die and then you go to a different plane of existence, like, would, quote unquote, heaven have different species in there? Or is it all humans just hanging out partying? Is it like, let's say, I don't know, like there's some other civilization that's many light years away, someone dies over there, are we going to the same place? Or are, even something of ghosts, because I think when I picture a realm, I don't think of something that's only confined to one species. I would imagine that like anything with a spirit or a soul, for example, would exist in that. And that's, something that's always been very perplexing to me, I guess.
So when you talk about that, like my belief, I don't believe that it's a particular place that everyone goes to, right? So I was with my friends a while ago, and we were just kind of sitting around, at the end of the night, just kind of talking, and they were talking about like their, personal experiences and how you know, your body is essentially a vessel, right? Like this is your physical vessel, and your soul, your spirit is a completely different entity. Like it's not your brain, it's not your, you know, your body, it's, you know, your mind, the thing that makes us work, right? And if you think about it, everyone has that. Dogs have it, cats have it. It's all, we all, obviously we can't communicate to each other, but we all have that soul, so to speak. And so it's kind of like what happened. Obviously, this is going maybe not really off topic. You know, what happens when you die, heaven and hell kind of thing. I would imagine, with my knowledge now and the things that I've seen and heard and read, you know, it's like it's something that my brain can't even comprehend, but I would assume that it's not going to be something where it's like different species, you know. Maybe it's something where it's all
so are you saying that, like,
you know what I'm saying?
Maybe we leave our forms of that we're used to seeing, like, for example, like, we're all humans, so we're used to seeing each other. So when we go to a different plane, we're all one species of something, you know, that
right. It's not even like a species, it's just like, it's like
a glowing orb. You know,
like glowing orbs. You know, it's like, man, like I said, I can't put it into words, but in my mind, that's what I imagine. Every living being, you know, we're just, it's like, I guess you could say it's downloading shit into a cloud. You know, all our computers aren't going to go there, but all the data is, right?
Yeah.
And so in the cloud, it's everyone's data and not everyone's different setups. You know?
Heaven is the cloud, and where does the data going to be uploaded to the system, more or less?
Yeah. But that's how I feel like it is.
So then how does like the different type of entities, the paranormal entities, like come into play? Like when you die, is it not as simple as we become angels or devils or ghosts or demons, whatever? Is there are we, like, what makes someone a demon versus someone becoming like a ghost or like a shadow person or something like that? You know, like, is that something to
I think that, so when we're talking, I'm just, you know, I'm just for everyone out there listening, you know, I'm kind of giving you my points of views on things based off of my own opinion on things that I've read or heard or, you know, studied. And what I picture it to be is, you know, I'm not totally against believing that there are different, you know, like you said, planes of existence and alternate realities, so to speak, different dimensions. And I don't think it would be crazy to say that they're not all the same. Like I don't think that, you know, everything is the same, just like slightly off. I feel like there could be, you know, a dimension where our little green alien men exist in their world, and you know, monsters, Loch Ness monsters, like you were saying earlier, exist, and that's their normal. Literally, just like Rick and Morty, you know, you go to another dimension and it's totally different. There's all these different kinds of,
they live that every day. So
exactly,
we would be the weird ones, you know, if anything, you know, going to their plane of existence. And I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Feel like, oh shit, there's a Gigi in the lake.
You know,
Everyone, she's gonna kill us all. What is that? You know?
Yeah. Like, imagine being a being, well, you know, I guess imagine, no pun intended, imagine being a being that hasn't seen something and it just shows up out of nowhere. Your brain wouldn't know how to comprehend it at all.
Exactly. And maybe that's where I feel like possibly, going back to the glitch in the matrix, if that, were to happen with a being from a different dimension, and scared the hell out of us or someone, and didn't look what we are used to seeing as peaceful or nice, would automatically assume that it's a demon or an alien or a monster of some sort, So.
Or even like a deity, because there's always, we always look at extraterrestrial beings, or things that we don't understand as always coming in violence or malice. But look at the Egyptians, those pyramids. There's always that whole debate. Did the Egyptians even make the pyramids? Because they talk about how the way those stones are cut, even with today's technology, it would still be hard to do today. And these dudes just pulled that off thousands of years ago, and it's even like the time frame in which they did it. And I know like John was kind of talking about this, earlier on, and how like some of these pyramids are just like it's almost it seems supernatural to a certain degree,
Yeah, so I did a little bit of research before this, because I didn't want to like throw the idea that aliens made the pyramids. Like, I wanted to do a little bit of research from what I could. And so everyone knows that it's like one of the great wonders of the world, and I think it's like the only last standing wonder of the world, and it was built like over 4,500 years ago. So the fact that it's like held that long is fascinating, but it's also kind of like, what did they do, that made it so durable that it would last more than 4,500 years? Because why aren't the other 7 or 6 wonders of the world still up? And so those, like, each stone weighs like 2 tons, and there's about 2 million-ish stones on the Pyramid of Giza. So can you imagine like trying to pull 2 tons? And I know that it's not one person just pulling the stone that weighs 2 tons. It must have been, I think it was said, I don't know what it was on average of how many pulled the stone, but they said there was like maybe 12 to 40,000 workers working on this.
Still a fuck ton of weight. That's just the thing that's crazy about it. It's like the fact that they were pulling it, and at the rate in which they built these things. Because it's one thing if they spend an entire lifetime building one, but the fact that there are multiple pyramids is just beyond me. Because I always compare it to the... Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, and not only pulling it, but pulling it up, uphill, that high, with that much weight. No matter, I feel like regardless of how many people you have pulling something like that, as high as the pyramids go, it just doesn't make sense to me,
Yeah,
regardless of the systems that they had.
Yeah, I'm like, first of all, I've seen these Egyptians' quads. They don't have any thick-ass quads to pull big-ass rocks. So I'm trying to figure out how the hell they pulled it up a slope and precisely placed it is also the thing we have to mention. It's like, it wasn't like these pyramids are kind of slanted or some of the things are off-centered. They are precise. And it is almost one of those things where also as well, too, the structure of a pyramid, why is that the form they chose for tombs? Because if you notice, like, whenever you see, like, these futuristic movies, where it's like, Blade Runner or Star Wars or things, why technology always comes in very, what do you call them, like rectangular or angular shapes, It's always depicted, like the cosmic cube, from like, the Avengers movies, or like, something's it's always very angular. And the fact that the pyramids, like the design, I wonder if it's like they just sat there and like, okay, we're going to put our pharaoh in this giant, triangle thing and then just, bury him. Or was it like suggestions from beings from, I don't know, from the sky, or whatever the case may be? Because their gods,
even if they, go ahead.
Because even their gods are very odd. The Egyptians with, you look at Anubis, a dog head, or Horus, a bird head, but they have human bodies. It's almost like they tried to, like if they were visited by aliens, it's almost like they tried to understand what they were seeing and just put it down. And the context in which they understood it. So they're like, this thing looks like maybe a dog. So that's why maybe Anubis looks the way he does. Maybe it wasn't a dog. Maybe it was just a weird looking alien. And he was, I don't know if that's kind of like making sense, but.
No, yeah, that makes sense.
Totally. And one of my things is if it was, the aliens that came down and gave them instructions and tips and, how to do it, why did they tell them to do pyramids? Like what would the significance of that be to the aliens? Like why would they even care, Like just what's in it for them is what I mean, you know?
So there's a video that I watched on YouTube, and if you guys want to watch it, I would look up, it's called Building the Great Pyramid in HD, and it's a 3-minute video by this YouTuber called Unmuseum. And they kind of explain how it might have possibly been built, like the Great Pyramid of Giza. And so that whole thing that we were talking about, how the hell did they pull the stones up at such a at such a high height? I think it's like 400 feet ish, something like that. But if they were to get to the top, they would need a ramp that's like half a mile long. So that would, I think they had said that would require more material than the actual pyramid itself. So that doesn't make any sense. And so they, I think they suggested, or engineers or someone suggested, that it zigzagged, like from, it would go from one end. And
I heard of that.
And I think there's another one where it would kind of like go across the pyramid. Like, I don't know how to say this without, so, it would go in a straight line, and then, you have that angle that you have to turn into, like that's the thing. Like, how do you move that 2-ton brick, like a 90-degree angle? How do you do that? So they had said that they might have been something called a notch. And that kind of, they left that part of the building open, more so for like air and sunlight, but also for a lever to help them essentially like move it in a 90-degree angle. And that kind of makes sense. But the weird thing that, you had mentioned that what is the significance of them building pyramids? I don't know if this is like of any benefit to them, but they had said that the pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza, points towards Orion's belt, which if I read it correctly, that's true north. And I don't know if that's like maybe like a compass for them. And it's also located in the middle, like the dead center of the world.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
So I don't know if that's like a pinpoint for them. Like, hey, this is the middle of the earth, and I don't know what they would do with that. But
right.
Like, I don't know if that to me, I don't think that's coincidence.
Yeah. And even with the Mayan temples, right? That the way that those were constructed and built, they also aligned with the stars. And there's another, theory that aliens came down and helped them build it and taught them about, the stars and all that kind of stuff. So,
but I guess the question is, though, so when we assume that aliens might have helped them, are we underestimating the people back then?
That's exactly what I was about to say. It's a good point. I'm wondering if I'm underestimating the intellect of people back then.
Yeah. Because, are we just assuming that people nowadays are smarter than the Egyptians? Because if you assume that, then, how did they get, I guess from what I've read, that the Egyptians were so well versed in mathematics that, this is maybe an ignorant statement, but has math changed that much since? Well, okay.
That's what I was just about to say. Yeah. No, I think we're not trying to like be rude here. Yeah. We're just looking at the facts that we see, and there was something that I heard recently. My boyfriend watches hundreds of YouTube videos on across all different subjects all the time. So every time I walk in, there's something else. But there's something that I heard about, I vaguely remember this, about ancient civilizations and how, you know, it's possible that there could have been so much knowledge, like knowledge that we don't have now, that got lost in time or ruin or war, you know. Lots of ancient scriptures and things that just kind of disappeared along the way. So it's possible, it's possible that they could have done this all on their own, had this intense amount of knowledge and how the world works, and in time, like it just got lost or destroyed somehow, and we had to start all over.
And also our needs are very different nowadays. So maybe the mathematics, to your point about math changing, maybe the math they needed back then to, I guess, solve their simple needs, we don't really need nowadays. Like you don't see people building pyramids unless you go to Vegas and you're going to a casino,
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
I guess
some of it's not necessary, I guess, anymore.
Yeah, so I guess when I had said that math didn't really change much, I don't think I meant to say that in terms of like, obviously math has changed because we use math differently in terms of like, getting to NASA or stuff like that. But to your point that, the math that they used back then is not as relevant as it is today, if that makes sense.
And I wonder if it's the same math. This may sound extremely dumb, but it's like, were they using like numbers like 1 plus whatever to calculate, the ramp size? Were they using math, or were they using something that's like what Gigi was saying, a lost art now, where it's just got lost in time because, it's no longer needed. And that is the crazy thing about it, because also I kind of want to kind of backtrack a little bit. Is it a coincidence that pyramids are like, always, trying to get closer to the sky? Because pyramids almost like they want to be closer. If we're to believe that, aliens almost influence this, would it be something that symbolizes, closer to the heavens and all that stuff? Because pyramids are, no matter how they are, whether it's the Egyptians that are pointed or the Mayans that are kind of almost like more rectangular and like kind of layered, they always point to the quote unquote heavens. And I wonder if that's the significance of it.
I think it is, because I did read something about how at one point the Pyramid of Giza was the highest building before something else. I don't remember what it was, but there had to be a purpose to build it that high, because you could have stopped anywhere,
right?
And I don't know if it's just because of the different what is the word, like different not cabinets, you know what I'm saying, but like different parts inside of the pyramid, like maybe they needed more room and that's why. Or is it they were trying to be as close as they could to the sky? So
well, I think a long time ago on one of those History Channel alien documentaries that they did, the guy that's like aliens, the main guy.
Yeah.
I feel like I remember them, I vaguely remember them talking about how it was a theory that aliens were using the Mayan structures and the way they built their temples as landing points for their like spaceships.
We'll be so disrespectful. Like we describe it as like, like one of the 7 wonders of the world, and then you have this alien species. Like, yeah, that's a parking lot for us,
right?
Guys.
I know. It's ridiculous. But it kind of, I mean, like if we're here, we're playing around with the paranormal and the possibility of extraterrestrial life, and we're talking about everything, right? We're just throwing it all out there. So, I mean, when I was asking like, what is the purpose for them to tell us to build things the way they do, it's a logical answer for me. Like, I mean,
And also, could we be being experimented on? Because I know this. So this is I'm a big sci-fi guy, and I remember I was actually talking to John about this before. So I think it was the second Star Trek out of the most recent films, the one that have Chris Pine and Zachary Quinto. And there was in the beginning of the movie, they were like, just, obviously traversing space. And there's one planet where the civilization was not technologically advanced. And I remember Captain Kirk, Chris Pine's character, said, be careful what you show them because they are so, I guess, unevolved that they may think you're a deity. And there was a whole funny sequence where basically he shows up like a motorcycle and a laser gun. And then these guys are like, holy shit. And now they started worshiping Captain Kirk, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm wondering almost to your point where it's like, when we wonder like what's the purpose of all these things that they, keep, I guess they quote unquote, I say keep having us do like it's, fact, but I guess for argument's sake, let's say they're coming back and forth. It could just be like an experiment just to see how we react to things. Like, okay, we gave them pyramids. Let's see what they do. Go pyramids for a couple hundred years. Okay, now
they built a KFC next to it.
Exactly. They built a Walmart next to it, and they ruined it with TikTok. Like, you guys know I hate TikTok. But it could be to see how we evolve, just give us a little bit by little bit. Like it's almost like, let's say for example, like they gave us fire, like, okay, let's see what they do. Okay, cool, now they use it to warn themselves. They give us tools and see if we grow or destroy ourselves. And I mean, we're intelligent, but if there's a being that like, 'cause I remember I forgot where I heard this quote, but the reason why there's this guy that said the reason why he fears aliens is because it's scary to think that there's a being that can get to you, but you can't get to it. So they can show up here on Earth and he'd be like, hey, what's up? But we don't have any sort of vessels that can show up at their place and be like, hey, what's up?
Yeah, 100% like we're vulnerable. We're literally, we are the ant on the anthill and they've got the magnifying glass. Like,
and that lets us know that they're far more, if they truly do exist, they're far more intelligent than us. So we could be being experimented on in ways that we cannot even comprehend. Like we may not even know. Right. Like what if religion is a social experiment for them? They're like, okay, we're going to create this being, Jesus, and see how they rock with it.
Or what if we're all just living in an artificial simulation?
Oh God,
because I got this broke ass simulation. I'm not rich.
I know.
So I guess since we're on simulation theory, let's just say that aliens gave us COVID, coronavirus.
They're like we fucked up. We need to wipe the whole system.
Yeah,
get rid of these human
Start
beings.
over.
Reverse.
Factory reset.
No, yeah, that's that. Now that you mentioned that, yeah, that's a pretty good, thing to think about. Like, what if they're giving us things and seeing how we respond to it? And I never really thought of it like that. And I don't know. Like, I feel like throughout this whole conversation that we've had, my mind has been broken at least 2 or 3 times. And it sounds cliche because I think it's called puzzled minds, but I feel like now we're like piecing back the thoughts that we never really had, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's 100%. True. Because one thing I think you have to realize, no one is exempt from manipulation. When someone is smarter than you, they can influence you in ways that are beyond your comprehension. And I'm I guess quote unquote, human enough to admit that like if I were being experimented on by, a species that's far more superior than I am intellectually wise, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't even know. Maybe the reason why I do what I do is because little seeds have been planted throughout my entire life, and that's the way I am. So think about like a species that's done it since the beginning of our civilization. That you wouldn't even know. You would have no way. And to be honest, like, would it necessarily be a bad thing? I really don't know. It just would be a scary thing because that means that this species would have so much control over it.
Right.
And that's scary.
The unknown. This is why sometimes I start thinking about stuff like this, and even, within the government, and, just I'll find myself down these rabbit holes, and it becomes too much to comprehend and too much to just even try to, because nobody knows. No one really knows. You could do all the research in the world. You spend your entire life researching. People do spend their entire lives devoted to researching these things, and they still, they don't know. No one ever knows. You never come to a conclusion. And so sometimes I stop and think, as ignorant as it sounds, I'm just going to keep living in my little bubble, my little happy bubble. I'm not going to pay attention to this kind of stuff. I'm going to focus on me and my life, and I'm going to continue living in my little happy bubble because I cannot handle the truth. And it's so much. It's a lot to think about, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like that's, if we want to go down rabbit holes, we'll have to do that on another episode, because I feel like we barely scratch the surface on this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like a deep dive.
Yeah.
Too easy.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you on. I feel like we definitely, for me at least, have opened my eyes and, seen this in a different view because of the questions that were asked today. And if anything, this has kind of like strengthened my like opinion and, on paranormal stuff.
Yeah. I'm just pretty sure I'm gonna have nightmares about shadow people now at this point.
Well, that's the thing. Like, it wasn't scary. It was never scary. That's why I'm not, afraid of it. And I'm okay to talk about it because I had that experience, and it wasn't scary. Like I never had a feeling of being terrified or unsafe. And so, to this point now, it's like if it happens again, it happens again. It's not going to be anything to be afraid of for me. So that, and I just binge watched tons of children's cartoon shows to wipe my mind, wipe my memory.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, I've tons of Paw Patrol incoming, and that's all I need. So, but I'm so glad you guys invited me on. This was a lot of fun, and it's so easy to talk to you too. So
yeah, definitely. So where can people find you on social media?
Oh gosh, I hate
All
self-promotion.
right.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at the Gigi Moon. And then I'm on Twitch every now and then at YG Moon. So pretty easy to find me. I'm, don't really have any kind of strong presence, but I just go with the flow. That's just what I do in life. And yeah, my social media will represent that.
No, it's all good. Yeah. Like I said, we appreciate you coming in. And spending the time with us. Would definitely have to do like another episode sometime whenever you.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm always down.
Cool.
This is fun.
Well, like I said before, follow us on our social media. Our Instagram is Puzzled Minds Podcast. Our Twitter is Puzzled Minds Pod, and our email is puzzledmindspodcast@gmail.com. And we, encourage you guys to submit any topics that you think that you would like us to kind of discuss. This topic kind of just came out of random, and I think it came out for the best because, I wasn't expecting to talk about this, and I'm glad that we did. I would love to have some submissions from people that do listen to this because.
Oh yeah, totally. And to talk about it the next time about what they have to say, for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Well, other than that, everyone stay puzzled, guys and gals.
Later.
Bye.